The day I opened that message, my hand started shaking. At first, I thought my husband was cheating. I wish that was all it was, because what I discovered that day didn't just break my heart, it changed my life forever. And the worst part, the signs had been there for months. I just didn't want to see them. Before everything changed, my life looked perfect from the outside. I had been married to Daniel for 8 years. We had a stable home, a growing business, and a 6-year-old daughter named Emma who adored her father. Daniel was calm, responsible, and hardworking. The kind of man who never missed a parent teacher conference. The kind of father who read bedtime stories every night without being asked. People often told me how lucky I was to have found someone so stable, so dependable, so solid. And honestly, I believed them. I believed I had won some kind of lottery, that I'd found the good guy in a world full of disappointments. We weren't a dramatic couple. We didn't fight much. We handled life like partners, making decisions together, supporting each other's goals, building something real. Our business was doing well. A marketing consultancy, we'd started together 3 years into our marriage. It was growing steadily, bringing in good money, creating the kind of life we dreamed about when we were dating. At least, that's what I thought. I had no idea that something was quietly changing, that beneath the surface of our normal, happy life, something dark was growing, something that would eventually swallow everything we'd built. It started with small things, things so subtle that I didn't even register them as warnings at first. Daniel began coming home later than usual, not dramatically late, just an hour here, 45 minutes there. At first, he said work was demanding, new clients, more responsibilities, bigger projects that required his attention. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? Our business was growing. It made sense that he'd need to put in more hours. Then he started taking his phone everywhere, and I mean everywhere, to the bathroom, to the garage when he was taking out the trash, to bed, tucked under his pillow instead of charging on the nightstand like it used to. If a message came in while we were having dinner, he would turn the screen away from me. Just a quick flip, casual, like it was nothing. When I asked him about it, he laughed it off. Work stress, he said. Clients messaging at all hours. You know how it is. And I did know. Running a business meant being available, being responsive, being on call, even during family time. So I let it go. Looking back now, that was my first mistake. Because the distance kept growing, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but growing nonetheless. He stopped sharing details about his day. When I would ask him how a meeting went or what a new client was like, he'd give me vague, one-word answers. Fine, good, normal. Like he was reading from a script designed to end the conversation as quickly as possible. He became defensive over simple questions. Where are you going? Who was that on the phone? Why are you late? Questions I'd asked 1,000 times before suddenly felt like accusations to him. He'd snap at me, tell me I was being paranoid, ask me why I couldn't just trust him. And deep down, something didn't feel right. That instinct women talk about, that gut feeling that something is off, was screaming at me, but I ignored it. I didn't want to believe my marriage was in trouble. I didn't want to be that wife, the suspicious one, the one who couldn't trust her husband. I told myself it was just a phase, work stress, business pressure, something that would pass once things settled down. I wish that was the worst part. Over the next few weeks, the changes became more obvious, impossible to ignore, really. Daniel stopped sharing details about his day completely. He would come home, kiss Emma on the forehead, nod at me, and disappear into his office for hours. Sometimes he would step outside to take calls, walking into the backyard or sitting in his car in the driveway, speaking in hushed tones I couldn't quite hear. One night, I woke up around 2 in the morning and realized Daniel wasn't in bed. I found him sitting in the living room in the dark, whispering on the phone. The glow of the screen lit up his face, and I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his shoulders were hunched like he was carrying something heavy. When he saw me standing in the doorway, he ended the call immediately, just hung up mid sentence. He told me it was a client overseas, different time zone, urgent matter. He smiled that same reassuring smile and came back to bed. That was when the fear started, really started. Not just the vague unease I'd been feeling, but actual cold fear that settled into my bones and wouldn't leave. I didn't want to admit it, but one thought kept coming back over and over, relentless and terrifying. He's seeing someone else. The idea broke me. Just the thought of it made me feel sick. I started watching him more carefully, noticing things. The way he'd shower as soon as he got home. The new cologne he'd bought without mentioning it. The fact that he'd started going to the gym, something he'd never cared about before. All the classic signs. All the things you read about in articles titled How to Tell If Your Partner is Cheating. Even then, I wasn't ready for the truth because what I was about to discover was far worse than an affair. The truth came out by accident, like these things often do. One afternoon, Daniel left his phone at home while rushing to work. He'd gotten a call on his smartwatch and bolted out the door, forgetting the phone charging on the kitchen counter. It buzzed about 20 minutes later. A text message. I stared at it for a long time, having an internal debate with myself. Should I look? Was I that person? Was I really going to violate his privacy based on a feeling? Then I picked it up. The message was from an unknown number, just 10 words. Did you send the payment? We need confirmation today. My heart dropped. Something about the tone felt wrong. Not flirty, not romantic, but urgent, transactional, cold. I opened the conversation. I know I shouldn't have, but I did, and what I found made my blood run cold. There were multiple transactions mentioned, large amounts of money, $50,000, 75,000, numbers that made my head spin, references to accounts I didn't recognize, deadlines, confirmations, instructions. At first, I thought maybe it was business related, a new client, a big project, something Daniel was handling that he just hadn't mentioned yet. But the tone didn't feel professional. It felt secretive, dangerous, even. I checked our joint account later that evening, sitting in the parking lot of Emma's ballet class while she practiced inside. I logged into our banking app with shaking hands, already knowing I was going to find something bad, but not knowing how bad. That's when I saw it. Money had been leaving our account for months, large amounts, regular transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, withdrawals that should have required both our signatures but somehow didn't. I sat there in my car, staring at the screen, feeling like the world was tilting beneath me. Tens of thousands of dollars, gone, just gone, and I had no idea where or why. I confronted him that night after Emma went to bed. I showed him the phone, the messages, the bank statements. I demanded to know what was going on. Daniel went pale. For a moment, he looked like he might be sick. Then he took a deep breath and told me it was an investment opportunity, a chance to make serious money. He said he hadn't told me because he wanted to surprise me when it paid off. He said he was handling it, that everything was under control, that I needed to trust him. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly because the alternative, the possibility that something darker was happening, was too terrifying to accept. But something still didn't add up. The secrecy, the amount, the tone of those messages, none of it felt like a legitimate investment. And that was when everything got worse. 3 weeks later, everything collapsed. I was at home with Emma, helping her with homework, when there was a knock on the door. Loud, official, the kind of knock that makes your stomach drop before you even open the door. Two police officers stood on my front porch. At first, I thought there had been a mistake, that they had the wrong house, that they were looking for someone else. But they asked for Daniel by name, and then they asked for financial records, business documents, bank statements. That was the moment I realized the truth. The moment the ground disappeared beneath my feet and I fell into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. There was no affair. There was no investment. Daniel had been involved in an illegal financial scheme, a Ponzi scheme, they called it later. He'd been recruited by someone, convinced to bring in other investors, promised returns that were too good to be true, and like an idiot, like a desperate, ambitious idiot, he'd believed it. And the money he had been transferring, it wasn't just his, it was ours, our savings. The money we'd put aside for Emma's college fund, our business funds, even money borrowed in my name, loans he'd taken out using my credit, my signature forged or obtained under false pretenses. I felt like I was drowning, standing in my living room with police officers explaining that my husband was under investigation for fraud, and I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what I was hearing. The man I trusted wasn't cheating. He was living a secret life, a criminal life. And that secret was about to destroy everything: our marriage, our business, our reputation, our future. The investigation lasted months, long, horrible, humiliating months. Our accounts were frozen. We couldn't access our own money. The business collapsed almost immediately. Clients left. Contracts were cancelled. Our reputation in the industry was destroyed overnight. Family members began asking questions. Some people thought I knew, that I was complicit, that I'd been part of the scheme from the beginning. Others blamed me for not knowing, for being so blind, so stupid, so naive, that I didn't see what my own husband was doing right under my nose. The shame was overwhelming, suffocating. I couldn't go to the grocery store without feeling like people were staring at me, judging me, whispering about me. Emma started having problems at school. Kids whose parents had heard about what happened. Kids who said cruel things children shouldn't even know how to say. At home, Daniel barely spoke. He moved through the house like a ghost, avoiding eye contact, avoiding conversation. When I tried to talk to him, to understand how this had happened, how he could have done this to us, he would just shake his head and say he was sorry, over and over. Sorry. Like that word could fix anything. I couldn't look at him the same way, couldn't touch him, couldn't sleep in the same bed. This wasn't betrayal of love. This was betrayal of our entire life. Every promise we'd made, every plan we'd built, every dream we'd shared, all of it was built on lies. And the worst part, our daughter kept asking why things were changing, why we had to move, why daddy looked so sad, why mommy was always crying, why her friends weren't allowed to come over anymore. That was the lowest point of my life. sitting on the floor of Emma's room, holding her while she cried, trying to explain something I didn't even understand myself. Within 6 months, everything was gone. Our savings completely depleted by legal fees and paying back victims. Our business shut down, reputation destroyed beyond repair, our home sold to cover debts. Daniel was facing criminal charges, multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, theft, and I was left trying to rebuild our life alone, completely alone, because Daniel wasn't my partner anymore. He was the person who had destroyed everything. There were nights I couldn't sleep. I would lie awake in the small, cheap apartment I'd moved into with Emma, staring at the ceiling, running through every moment of our marriage, looking for signs I'd missed. Conversations I should have questioned, behavior I should have challenged. Days I didn't know how to keep going, when getting out of bed felt impossible, when facing another day of judgment and shame and financial stress felt like more than I could bear. I kept asking myself one question over and over. How did I not see this? How could the person I slept next to every night, the person I built a life with, be living this massive lie and I didn't know? What did that say about me? About my judgment? About my ability to see what was right in front of me? The guilt was almost as bad as the betrayal because part of me felt responsible, like I should have known, like I should have asked harder questions, like I should have trusted my instincts instead of ignoring them. But one day, sitting in that tiny apartment, watching Emma play with toys we'd bought at a thrift store because new ones were too expensive now, I realized something. I couldn't change what had happened. I couldn't go back and make different choices. I couldn't undo Daniel's crimes or erase the damage he'd done. But I could decide what happened next. I could choose to be a victim forever, or I could choose to survive, to rebuild, to show my daughter that even when life falls apart, you keep going. I filed for separation, then divorce. I moved into an even smaller apartment, but one that felt like ours, like a fresh start instead of a punishment, and slowly, painfully, I started rebuilding. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, financial struggles, emotional breakdowns, days when I wanted to give up, but staying broken wasn't an option, not for me, and definitely not for Emma. I found a job, not in marketing. That industry was close to me now, but in retail management. It paid less than half what I used to make, but it was honest work, clean work, work that didn't come with secrets and lies and shame. I started therapy, dealt with the trauma, the betrayal, the anger, the grief for the life I'd lost. I taught Emma that sometimes people we love make terrible choices, that those choices aren't her fault, that she's allowed to be angry and sad and confused, but she's not allowed to let it define her. It took 2 years to stabilize financially, to pay off the debts I was legally responsible for, to rebuild my credit, to save enough money to feel like I could breathe again. Emotionally, it took even longer. Maybe it's still taking, but today I am stronger, genuinely stronger. Not in the fake Instagram quote kind of way, but in the real, tested by fire kind of way. I trust my instincts more. When something feels wrong now, I don't ignore it. I don't talk myself out of it. I don't make excuses. I pay attention. I pay attention to the small signs, the changes in behavior, the secretive phone calls, the defensiveness, the vague answers, because now I understand something important. Sometimes the danger in your life isn't emotional betrayal. Sometimes it's hidden behind silence. behind normalcy, behind the facade of a stable, happy life. Daniel is in prison now, serving a 6-year sentence. Emma asks about him sometimes. I tell her the truth, age appropriately, that he made bad choices, that he hurts people, that he's paying the consequences. I don't hate him anymore. I did for a long time. But hate takes energy I don't have. Now I just feel sorry for him. Sorry that he was so desperate, so deluded, so weak that he threw away everything real for something fake. And I'm grateful, strangely, genuinely grateful, because this nightmare taught me who I really am. It showed me I'm stronger than I thought, more resilient, more capable. It taught me that the life you trust can disappear in an instant, that security is an illusion, that the only person you can truly count on is yourself. And it taught me to listen to that voice inside that says something is wrong, because that voice, that instinct, is usually right. I thought I was afraid of an affair, but the truth was much worse. Because sometimes the biggest betrayal isn't another person, it's discovering that the life you trusted was never real, that the man you married was living a double life, that the security you felt was built on crimes you didn't know were being committed, that everything you worked for could disappear because someone you loved made choices you had no control over. And if something feels wrong, if that voice in your head is telling you to pay attention, to ask questions, to dig deeper, don't ignore it. Because the signs you ignore today may cost you everything tomorrow. I ignored the late nights, the secretive phone calls, the defensive behavior, the distance. I ignored all of it because I didn't want to face what it might mean. And it cost me 8 years of my life, my home, my business, my savings, my reputation, nearly cost me my sanity. Don't make my mistake. Trust your gut. Ask the hard questions. And if the answers don't make sense, keep asking until they do. Because your life, your future, your peace of mind, they're worth protecting, even if that means facing uncomfortable truths. Even if that means discovering that the person you trusted isn't who you thought they were. I'm rebuilding now, slowly, carefully, with my eyes wide open this time. And if my story helps even one person see the warning signs I missed, helps one person trust their instincts before it's too late, then maybe all of this meant something. Maybe all of this pain wasn't for nothing. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever ignored warning signs or trusted someone who betrayed that trust, leave a comment below, share your story, let's support each other. And if you want more real, raw, honest confessions like this, hit that subscribe button because life is messy and we're all just trying to survive it together.